So we'll see how it goes. Top right of 2,000 atmospheres for Team Alpha X. It is Astrea.
And playing for the Shopify Rebellion, it's Scarlett. A true rebel.
Yeah.
Will not turn on the lights.
No. She says that it's just the camera. At least that's what she said in a group discussion that I can't talk about. But yeah, I was like, I don't know. That's pretty dark. Seems like unhealthy eyesight.
There's definitely no lights in that room. That's for sure. Yeah. That is not an issue of the camera not picking up light, as it is picking up some of the reflected light on her face. There's just not light anywhere else. But on the monitor, right?
I guess not. You know, I was thinking about this to a like not absurd degree, like not comical. Like legitimately, I do think that, you know, for a lot of us, what you see from the commentators especially, we have like studio lights. And to be honest, they're really annoying. I don't like having them. But while they don't need studio lights to have, you know, Astrea's lights, for instance, are totally fine. I mean, there is sometimes a really big difference for how you have like light angled. That means that you are far more comfortable with the lights off. So it's fun to make fun of it, but I am guessing that her and Lambo, right, those are the two with the really dark rooms, I think this is actually just their comfort zone. It's not anything about not being on camera or not. They just, this is how they usually play.
Oh, no doubt about that. I mean, yeah, from a certain perspective, having less light is, you know, all of your attention will go on the monitors, right? Like there's nothing else distracting. There's nothing else to pull your eyesight. So as much as it may not be the healthiest choice for your eyesight down the line, certainly for the game itself, you're not going to have any more input to focus on. That's got to be somewhat beneficial.
Yeah,
Still, turn on your lights.
Yeah, I'm just like, you know, long-term damage. I mean, maybe we're turning on the lights. I was really confused about this fast second gateway from Astrea, but going to apply a decent amount of pressure early on. I mean, it's also mostly because I just didn't think that he would have to. It is a 2-structure wall off, where you can still have a unit fit in the middle, as we see here. So you can usually do it with Gateway and Summer Next Score. And not many Zerg players, even if they go for a pool first, are really going for a very dedicated pool first. So we've seen, you know, a lot of Protosses, especially if it's on a 12 pool, right? Just be like, oh, I'm okay. But now going for 2 gateways, producing consistently 2 units. I mean, I know Astrea used to do kind of real wacky stuff 4 or 5 years ago before he really found his groove, but it's a bit of a different start to a PvZ.
Yeah, for sure. It's a map that doesn't tell you that you have to go for this. Oh, could have gone for the shade there. Of course, a little bit dangerous, but did manage to get to in between the minerals. But yeah, I'm completely with you, right? Like, there's no reason, even if there was early pools, both of the buildings in the positions that Astrea has them, is this too fast? Is this what the plan is, you think?
Yeah, I guess 2 gateway 3rd Nexus. 100% of any other, so 99%, I guess I have to say officially, 99% of the time, a Protoss player is going to choose Stargate, Twilight Council, or Robo before they take a 3rd. To actually just only go for gateways is pretty crazy. I mean, so you're basically, you've lost, well, I guess 2 gateways do apply some pressure, but I would say like usually not a lot. And you're definitely not getting any advanced technology. And I feel like you're also not scaring the Zerg player. Because, you know, Stargates can mean many things. Robos can mean pushes. Twilight Councils can mean Dark Templar or Adept builds. Just gateways? Yeah, at best it's an Adept attack without Resonating Glaives. Which, I mean, hey, maybe that's still scary. But, yeah, what a funny way to open. I mean, one thing's for sure. It's probably confusing Scarlett a little bit, too.
For sure. Like, there's that aspect, and there's also the economic aspect. This is an extremely fast Nexus with still having the ability to apply some pressure. So it's actually a pretty nifty build at the expense of, you know, Stargates that now are going down and whatnot. 2 drones have already fallen. Oh, actually targeting the gas for 2 full shots. Astrea not killing a lot of Zerglings in the process. That gas actually soaked up a lot of damage. A heavy misclick there. But, yeah, I mean, still, Astrea with this opening will be kind of safe. And I love when you look at like how he has structured his build order. He finishes 2 rounds of units, and then the warp gate finishes at a perfect time to warp in more units if he needs to. So he ends up taking an extremely fast 3rd whilst having the option to kind of apply some semblance of pressure and now transitioning and going back for those target units. It just kind of sucks that his Adepts didn't really accomplish what they were looking for on the other side of them.
No, not at all. But yeah, that is still going to be a very surprising double Stargate triple Stargate, my bad, third one's on the way, in a Phoenix. I mean, this is going to 100% be a surprise, but you know, recently we did see a PvZ where a Phoenix build came out again, because they're just not as popular as everything else, triple Oracle and Void Race. And despite what looked like a very promising opportunity for the Protoss, it didn't really end up doing very much. I think it was Gung Fu versus Sword, if I remember correctly. And so I want to build this up. I want to be like, oh, super cool, hidden build, because it's still hidden. Scarlett's not that any scouting. There's an Overlord that could try, but it would die to the Sentry and the Stalker. But, hey, I've seen this build not work out as well as Protoss hoped before, so I don't know.
For sure. Under current circumstances, though, there are only 6 Queens out there. Roaches and or Ravagers are going to be juicy targets, especially if Scarlett is just making them for defense, because they have no business being here for defense. If she was looking to make a Queen Walk or something of the sorts work out, and she was making a lot of Roaches, overwhelming amounts of Lings and the likes, great. But these Roaches are basically wasted investments. She does not have the capabilities to cross the map to punish a move out from the Phoenix, and that just means a lot of free damage. All of these Queens are likely to fall. There's not very many of them. There's no Spore Crawlers. These Phoenixes are gonna be nasty good here.
Yeah, I guess a really big difference is that there's no Spore Crawlers whatsoever, where at least in previous examples of Surprise Phoenix, there was at least the knowledge of a Stargate, you know, an Oracle or something. So the fact that there's really not additional Queens, no reason to make them at all if you think it is just a straight up game, and no Spore Crawlers, that is a lot of damage. It's an amazing first act of the Phoenix, but they're not going to be done anytime soon.
Yeah, what I am worried about, however, is if Astrea continues to make too many more Phoenix. I wish that he was taking the fights against the Queens a little bit more and against the Roaches, perhaps even instead of the drones. Just because killing drones, I mean, they are going to be fairly cheap, and Scarlett has been making a lot of them, right? So she can always remake those. Whereas the scary thing potentially is if Scarlett starts making a lot of units and then crosses the map, and then you are stuck with a lot of Phoenix. Once Fungal gets in play, once Vipers are in play, a lot of the power of these Phoenixes is gonna kind of go down the dumpster. So great damage to start, and this is actually good for Astrea. This is good because that's free pickings on Roaches, actually.
Yeah. I'm sure Scarlett realized this would eventually happen, but she was really hoping for maybe a less healthy Nexus to snipe, or maybe some more expensive units like a Disruptor or a handful of Sentries. But yeah, it's certainly not really worth anything for Scarlett, but they also wouldn't have done anything for her otherwise. She is totally on the back foot, just desperately trying to get to a decent enough army that she could actually use the Hive with Vipers. But if she just went for Vipers right now, I mean, maybe 2 of them stacked up could actually kill quite a few Phoenix, but that means that Astrea isn't ready to micro. Which, yeah, to be fair, it's a bit hard with these Phoenix flowers.
Yeah, I mean, they do tend to stack up, but Astrea and Scarlett really are 2 of the best in North America, obviously, at micro, so he should be able to split the Phoenix if he needs to. These Phoenix have found so much value, and Astrea now transitioning into triple Robo. Oh my god. I haven't seen play like this since, like, there was like a player that kind of appeared and disappeared. Succeed was his name. Dennis, a good friend of mine to the day, and he went to a Red Bull event, but he is the only player that really did like sharp switches like this that I remember. Like, what? Like triple Stargate Phoenix into triple Robo? It's just incredible to me. Astrea really playing an amazing game.
No meme, I'm pretty sure this was one of Huck's builds in the beginning of Legacy of the Void. Oh, like, honestly, well, triple Robo was definitely the thing in the beginning of Legacy of the Void, alongside some abusive Adepts because they were a bit different. But I think he actually even opened up with Phoenix, so it's just like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's definitely not an old school build. It is its own little twist, but it has some, I guess, old school elements to it if you want to go that direction. You know, Mass Phoenix is old school. Usually not this massive Phoenix, and usually not off of no technology third base, but it is eventually going into Phoenix Colossus, which, wow. I mean, it's just a step away from Void Ray Colossus, which means that Idra is mauling somewhere out there.
Yeah, it surely is. A lot of these Queens are going to be targeted down in the air by the remaining Phoenixes that weren't getting the lift-offs, and I like those trades. Right now, I think Astrea needs to actually get rid of something, because the Vipers are going to be here, and those are going to be super annoying. At the same time, those Vipers are also the counter to those very expensive Robo units. So Astrea is not out of the weeds. He has played an incredible game, but he needs some sort of buffer or some sort of way to deal with these Vipers. They are really the bane of his existence.
Oh my god! Oh, every single one got abducted. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? Oh my god, the Hydras are gonna win this game. Are you serious?
God.
No.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I mean, there are two Colossus pop up, and now with the lift up from the Phoenix, it looks like Astrea will end up stabilizing here. But that was a lot of expensive units to lose out of nowhere. And that's what I mean. He needs some sort of buffer to protect against those Vipers in particular. Be that High Templars for the feedback, or Blink Stalkers just to blink on at the front, or Phoenix to bait out other spells that aren't gonna threaten the army that can actually deal with Hydra.
That was amazing. That was tip-top PvZ. So at the end of it, it turns out that Scarlett maybe loses out a bit in the resources trade, right? Because she also lost a lot of Hydras towards the end and all the Vipers as well. But, oh boy. She's managed to find herself a decent economy despite all the harassment. Astrea's found an even better one, true. But that gives me some more faith, perhaps, in... I don't know if it gave me more faith or lost faith, like in both of them. I don't know which one it was. But
it's a really tough series to decide anything. I mean, yeah, what are we looking at? It's so difficult to figure out who this is going to favor. I think Astrea, of course, remaxing capabilities are not going to be there for him as available as for other players would be when they have a lot of gateways situated instead of triple row or triple Stargate, right? So there are 7 or so gateways. He is looking to secure his side of the map with some static defense, which should be great to buy him time and to make room for his slower army and lack of warp pins potentials to defend, to kind of move around and defend him. But on offense, I mean, Scarlett is going to be very difficult to reach. Those Vipers are going to be very annoying.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like the Phoenix are kind of powerful against the Lurker idea, but they're still very vulnerable to the Vipers. Right? So I could see how things work when things go perfectly for one or the other, and that's why I couldn't decide if it was more or less faith. Because on one hand, Scarlett did more than I thought she would by abducting everything at once. Yeah. But on the other hand, Astrea did end up holding with what he chose to do, so it, it was a bit of a wash. So I really don't know who to favor with this type of game.
Yeah, I think if the feedbacks go off, then Astrea will be in a fantastic shape. He doesn't have too many disruptors, however, which is the preferred, I think, answer to these Lurkers. The Colossus are going to help, but the Lurkers are still getting a lot of damage. The Phoenix will just kind of do a flyby and get rid of all the Vipers. So now might be go time for Astrea. Oddly enough, it's Scarlett that pushes on the gas pedal onto both bases of Astrea at the same time. Static defense will hold for the time being in the north, but for how long? And engaging into this Lurker is very, very difficult. Again, no disruptors to be found. One.
Just one. Getting a really good shot, but unfortunately one disruptor doesn't actually kill Lurkers. Gonna need another one that's equally as good, which seems impossible now that Scarlett's going to kind of micro them away from each other. Is this too far gone? Astrea loses the third, is going to have his production camped very soon if he can't actually break this. I mean, I feel like Astrea eventually could, but it needs more than one angle. Or the Phoenix need to get some lifts here, but they actually aren't getting any lifts at all. Disruptor is going to find another handful of Lurkers, and there is the cleanup. But Astrea has already taken a decent bit of damage.
He really has. At the same time, Scarlett is on 5 bases, so there's that glimmer of hope. 5 bases with the main and the natural about to mine out for the most part. Astrea is still on 73 workers that he can still spread across his bases, and not too far from maxing out himself. Now producing carriers, of course.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Naturally.
I mean, that looked like a very punishing blow there, but at the end of the day, able to retain a lot of the expensive units, and Astrea only lost the one base. There was not enough chaos going on to lose anything else or a lot of probes. A couple of abducts do go down, a bit awkward around this corner, but a fantastic storm to help out at least a little bit. Astrea, that is not a very big army, my dude. I am so surprised he's still sticking around here. And there it is, the storms to safely retreat.
Yeah, it's so difficult, right? Because you go in there and you think, oh, maybe something, but no, then the Vipers show up, they abduct 3 units, and you wanna get more value, because otherwise you're just going back at a loss when you feel like you just got punched in the face by the attack of Scarlett. So I think Astrea was just hoping, hey, show me your Hydras, let me storm them a little bit, but Scarlett's too smart for that, and Astrea will have to now retrieve. Having gained very little from that move out, like you were just pointing out, he is now back on the defensive, nearly maxed out still, but where is his army? Here it comes.
Yeah, it's the carriers that are here and the carriers that are building. They're about to pop, and they're fairly close to having +2, but they're not going to have +2 by the time this engagement happens. Phoenix dive bombing on top of the Vipers. Do manage to take out all but one. That does help a little bit. Obviously, the Phoenix count has now been torn down to just 3. And another Nexus does go down. Astrea still holds at 4 bases. I think he's going to hold here again. 3 more carriers coming forward. Are they even necessary by the looks of things? No. I mean, I think the was, oh no, the Lurkers. Oh my god, the Lurkers with nothing there to detect them.
Yeah, and those Templars are key pieces as well. They barely survive with any HP there. On the other side, Scarlett is continuing to apply pressure. A lot of that static defense will buy time for Astrea. And now with the Observer kind of unsieging, it was just off to the side of those Lurkers. Astrea will be able to push back Scarlett for the time being. A bananas game.
Yeah, he also lost the High Templar, by the way. He moved back into
Oh,
Lurkers,
no.
So. Yeah. I mean, Gas is not, the main problem in this game. There's actually a bit of a bank, so replacing them is definitely doable, but it's just... It seems to be one engagement after another that Scarlett does walk away just a bit better for. Not totally. Like, this game is absolutely still going to go on, but Astrea does need to make some winning moves at this point. And hey, some Zealot run-bys, finding some success, it looks like.
Yeah, will that be enough? And yeah, I mean, the Templars are replaceable, but they had so much energy too. So that part has to be painful for Astrea, who's going to try to stabilize however he can. Now he is further from max than he has been for a while. And Scarlett is not only maxed, but getting a bank. So establishing her now 6th base, it looks like, actually. It got taken down by the Zealot run-by that you were mentioning. And I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this one. It looks kind of tough for Astrea.
Oh, it still looks tough for Astrea, but, it's not a situation where Scarlett is already preparing for a mass Corruptor switch, right? So right now, Astrea with +2 carriers and 9 of them, you can do all right against Hydra Lurker, especially if the feedbacks go down, right? Especially if the High Templar are actually around. And they are still very pivotal, but right now, the army as is working for Astrea. It needs to work a little bit better. It needs to be in more than one position at once, which is pretty impossible, but it's something that can be worked with. I think the real fear is that Scarlett will eventually go, I'm tired of sacrificing Hydras, and let's just bombard the carriers with 20, 30 Corruptors because I've been banking this entire time.
Yeah,
Not there
also
yet.
The option there from Scarlett to make an Infestor or 2 for the Poopy Cloud spell. That would be really helpful potentially, though. The storms can really help to mitigate its effect. It can be super effective against carriers if you're going to be working with this many Hydras. That's it. And like you have been saying, this carrier fleet is pretty powerful still. We'll see if Astrea... Oh, 2 of those Templars getting really low there.
Yeah. That is a good point. I think Microbial Shroud, I mean, this is exactly what it was designed for, so that there wasn't any of the Corruptor Wars. And it seems like Scarlett maybe just not... I know she's used it in the past, but isn't thinking about it right now. She also is just trying to continue pressuring Astrea, so she's remaxing on these Hydras. That is the game plan, is to eventually wear Astrea down. So she doesn't have the flexibility, she doesn't have the bank to try and swap into any additional tech. That's the good news for Astrea, and the good news for Scarlett is that she does have a lot of flexibility to do this and potentially still win. It is the engagement that I think Astrea is most well prepared for. Looks like he just lost 2 carriers though. Or 1 carrier, actually.
Yeah, I definitely see, like, if you're Scarlett right now, your game plan is go hit on one side, then show up on the other side, and just, mobile army, Hydras, and Vipers will do a great job of that. Whereas other spells like Infestors coming in with all sorts of, any Infestor spell actually, not just Microbial Shroud, but also the Fungal or even what is it called? The tongue? Oh my god, I'm bad with
Neural
spell names
Parasite.
today. Neural Parasite. Thank you. I'm a Zerg player, by the way, former Zerg pro. But yeah, spell. But yeah, I mean, all of those spells would come in handy, I think, in the bigger fights. I don't think Scarlett, like you're hinting to, is looking for cost efficiency. She's just looking to spread Astrea thin here. But at some point, we have to look for her to still have those options on the table. At some point, Astrea deflects for long enough that this game can start turning around.
I think it already has, right? Just by the mere fact that Astrea is the one now pressuring Scarlett. He has divvied up his army to now pressure 2 fronts, and it's working. So Scarlett is absolutely now in a place where she is going, oh, what the hell was that?
Oh, wow.
Did the Viper die and got 2 abducts off? What?
Yeah, shift click the abduct, and it showed up in the middle, so it did it at the same time.
Amazing.
That Viper had 2 tongues.
Amazing. Anyways, So now she actually, it's no longer just like, it'd be really nice if she added Microbial Shroud to this composition. She really needs to. I know it's like, it's not time to worry quite yet because she's got 8,000, 3,000 in the bank, but she's no longer in control of this game. And she's not stopping Astrea from getting to his own 5 bases and bank as well, with a composition that I think will eventually beat hers if she doesn't get Microbial Shroud. We do finally see Passage Glance on the way, so I think she's thinking about it now. And actually, she finds an engagement where Astrea is not quite paying attention, so I think he already lost a couple of High Templars there.
Yeah, Pathogen Glance and Burrow. So we see the gears turning here for Scarlett. She's definitely looking to transition into some more, some different army compositions, right? Even the Spire going down a long ways away from something like Broodlords and being zoned off by these Lurkers. Astrea chooses to recall and go for a massive flank. This might end up working out. Scarlett not focusing the Nexus, not being able to. So a big profitable engagement there for Astrea. 2 of those Templars, those 2 Templars always seem to have no HP, and then they regenerate their shields. I'll imagine that they are the same too, because they are playing with fire all game long. This base will get taken down by Astrea, but it's mostly, or at least mostly mined out, so he's not going to suffer too much from that. This north base is a little bit more important. One of those Hero Templars will fall.
Yeah, this was the remnants of a bigger army, by the way. So it was already taken care of, and then it's now just being cleaned up. So Scarlett does find, again, room on the other side of the map, because that's what's really critical. I think that's what was missing for, only 30 seconds at the end of the day, but that's when you start to get worried. That's when you start seeing the Zerg player as the defender. But now that Astrea is back again to having to worry about the economy and worry about how this game goes, Scarlett still has the assurance of a humongous bank, and soon to be the assurance of some Microbial Shroud to help. It does not help against Storm, but it helps a tremendous amount against Interceptors.
Yeah, there's a huge surround, but again, good Storms to zone out half of the flank from Scarlett. So Astrea able to fight half of the army at once at a single point. Scarlett actually dipping in supply from Astrea. She has a massive bank, but she's just gonna remax on Hydras.
Didn't have enough larvae to use all of her bank is the current problem. The queens are pulled to the front lines. All the hatcheries have died after all, right?
Oh, down.
So usually her mechanics are rock solid, but this time around is missing a bigger remax. And if she had the remax that she could, if there was 20 more Hydras on the way popping all at once, I think Astrea is way overstaying his welcome and probably just loses the game. But because it's a little more of a trickle, Astrea can at very least pretend to pressure. Now Astrea is losing everything back at home while doing this, so it is very all in. But again, because Scarlett is trickling forward here, never got to those infestors, maybe... Oh, there's no more storms. No, I don't think he can do it.
Right? There is Pathogen Glance already out. The Neuroparasite, the Tongue, has already been researched, but there are no infestors to take advantage of their prowess with their Tongues. And so 18 workers have already fallen. These Hydras don't stand any chance. Huge bank, but no larva. It's done. What is this game?
It's done, man. No storms necessary, apparently. That was not at all the fight that Scarlett was looking for, and she might end up losing this game with 4,300 minerals in the bank and 1,600 gas. This was the killing blow. Astrea just had too many carriers, and even the Colossus to help out, and Archon to tank a little bit, and Scarlett never got to the most ideal composition for Hydras, which was the inclusion of Microbial Shroud. Microbial Shroud would have been the biggest difference maker of that last engagement.
I mean, Microbial Shroud, Fungal, Tongue, anything would have worked from those infestors. The Vipers would have been, more Vipers and more numbers would have been good. You mentioned the Corruptors. A transition into Corruptors at some point would have been good. Instead, we have Hydras. And I mean, at some point that looked like it could be enough. But there was no reason for her not to transition. She had the bank. And in the past, I've even faulted Scarlett for getting too many techs. I've been like, whoa, like, do you really need the Ultraless Cavern and both Ultraless upgrades and 3 upgrades at once? But this time around, she was just like the opposite, right? She was like, yeah, let me just finish it off with this. Like, she's playing mono battles almost, and it's just not going to work out against Astrea.
No, the mono battle is not going to work. I chose Hydras, you chose carriers. I guess you win. Astrea is even still mining off of one full base. The Lurkers didn't quite do the entire job there. The Hydras are now making their way over. Scarlett realizes that she's got to start thinking out of the box to actually win this game. She's going to go for a bit of base race tactic, recall on the probes to save them back to the natural, the main? The main. They got saved to the main.
Yeah. And that means a lot of real estate has been denied for Astrea, but this army of Hydras is just never going to be able to take down the army of Astrea. Scarlett, I can understand. She still has a bank, so she feels like she's not out of the game. She's trying to make a spawning pool so that she can then start making, what, queens? Or start a lair so that she can then go back for Hydras at some point. it's desperation, right? And if I'm Scarlett, I can't believe that this game, or a game that was so in my favor, has slipped. Just I don't know how to say this, but it seems like laziness almost.
Very much horse blinders on, right? Like, oh, I'm winning. Oh, I have enough bank that I can be a little comfortable here, and I'll just continue pressuring him with the Hydras. And then it did get to that critical point where unless you were able to either advance your army or actually get the victory, you were going to have to consider other options. You know, like it, and she just never really seemed to. She was still stuck on the same composition, even as Astrea got to a decent carrier count with decent upgrades as well. So it does seem like it is game over, but Scarlett is not willing to give up yet. She does have a lot of Hydras again. They are at 3-3, but they didn't win against the previous carrier engagement. Are they really going to win now, especially with Storms added in? Definitely not.
Yeah, she might have watched that Raynor Skillless game, thought, hey, maybe if I can turtle on one base, I can get some internet points in the process as well. But I mean, this comeback is just so far gone. The spores get taken down, and now, I mean, Scarlett can try to do the same thing with the spawning pool here at the north, but Astrea is going to be well aware of that prospect, and now he just has to march up there and, quite frankly, just end it.
Yep. Unless Scarlett can actually force a true base race. I mean, she's taking out important Nexus, and she does manage to get, well, kind of a base up. Zealot's currently harassing it.
She's super trying now. I mean, she's super tryhard now. She's leaving one Hydra behind to deal with all the probes and stuff like that, right? Like just being super efficient with what she has to work with. But what she has to work with is just not simply enough at this point in time. At least I wouldn't think so. But Scarlett is one of the best Zerg players in StarCraft history. So maybe she can make some magic happen, but it's going to take David Blaine at this point, right? It's just not it's just not looking likely, and she is going to have to tap out.
What a weird game too, right? So Scarlett was ahead for a lot of that game. At the end of it, it was a 28-minute game, so I don't even know how to really parse it. But let's say that she was ahead for minute like 12 to 24 or something like that. But before the opener, Astrea's opener, like it was the weirdest, craziest thing, and it was Surprise Phoenix that did end up doing a pretty good job. So the fact that Scarlett even got to a point where once she recovered from the opener and was like, oh, that happened, okay, let me just move on, was already commendable. And then to play 6 more minutes of that kind of game was great, fantastic. But it was the last 8 minutes of the game. Again, I don't know exactly when the timestamps were, but it's last 8 minutes of those games where it was like, well, hold on. We're having that kind of conundrum where it is classic Zerg quantity versus Protoss quality. And if only she had done something to actually improve her quantity, or just had enough larva. If she realized that she was going to be larva capped, then that might have been a big difference.
Yeah, I think that if we were to interview Scarlett and we were to touch on that first game, she would say something along those lines, right? Like, if I only had the larva to remax, it would have been fine. It wasn't an issue of the approach. But I think it was kind of both. I think it was an issue of, yeah, maybe if you have enough larva to remax, you still stand a chance, but that was still a much more complicated game than it needed to be. If you just go for the Corruptors or the Infestors or just, or a Spore Forest or just something that isn't running Hydras into Carrier Storm. Because I mean, yeah, that could have worked, but it just didn't. And most often it doesn't, not in even circumstances. So she throws away a little bit of a lead, and she might come to regret that. This is a series that we expect will be very close. And as awesome and chaotic as that game was, actually, I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Scarlett, because that was an awesome game, right? Like that was just so great to watch.
It was really fun. I mean, they both deserve credit for it. Astrea started off the weirdness, and Scarlett just rolled with it, but at the end of the day, Astrea does get potentially a very important win. I mean, we said that it was going to be a very close series, and to seemingly let a win go is going to come back and haunt you. You get sent down to the lower bracket, which is what they're fighting for, by the way. This is the upper bracket of DreamHack Winter NA. In the top left, down a game now, she is Scarlett.
And in the bottom right-hand side, it is for Alpha X, leading the series 1-0. Astrea!
It's been kind of a crazy last, I'd say year, maybe year and a half, I'm not sure. But where, that long ago, we were making fun of Microbial Shroud. We were like, it's totally useless, never going to be used. Storm just pierces through it, so it's not useful. But then, a couple of Zerg players, Dark especially, came forward and was like, no, I can actually make this work and actually make a style off of it. And he proved that even if you do have access to Storm, that's not necessarily what's going to save the day. And to be fair, that usually includes tons more queens. So it's not exactly what Scarlett was shooting for, but, you know, Storm or not, but especially when there is no Storm. Microbial Shroud is specifically made, literally made for Hydra versus Carrier. That's literally why it's made. So you'd expect it to be at least somewhat good to have, and it would have been. I'm sticking with that.
Yeah, I mean, the balance team, when they were discussing Microbial Shroud, they always talked about, you know, how that was the role that it had to fill. They were kind of conservative in their approach. They didn't want the game to break at this stage, right? Because they were kind of getting ready to be a little bit more hands-off. So the spell wasn't overtuned by any means, but I always thought that there was a chance that Microbial Shroud timings could work with like Hydras and such before Storm kicks in, right? There were carrier rations and stuff. So you always, with that ability, remove options from the Protoss table. But then, like you said, Dark showed Queens, right? Because why? Because you can Storm Queens, they won't die. And they, you know, so no problem. Disruptors under Queens, hey, no problem. They also don't die. You need 2 Disruptor shots stacked up. So Queens with Microbial Shroud are a great way to kind of utilize the spell. But in that game, I mean, anything helps. Anything helps. You're getting stormed anyway. So why not get stormed and take a little bit less damage from the carriers?
Yeah, and obviously it would have been really good for the last fight that happened. Oh, really? I surrounded the Adept here. That's a mistake from Astrea. Yeah, the last fight especially would have been helpful. I also am just surprised. I rewatched it on the delay that Scarlett, she must have also thought she had a decent chance to take the engagement where she did, around her 3rd or 4th. I don't remember which one. Because she did spread. She spread. She had Spore Crawler. She had, you know, the 2 queens that she had in the front lines, and she took the engagement where, you know, maybe she also miscalculated how good the carriers alone were going to be. And I guess she's not going to make that mistake again. We're probably not going to get a game like that again. Definitely not, in fact, because Astrea won't be starting it off so weird. Starting off the Twilight Council, in fact, that Scarlett can actually see with the Overlord.
I am confident we won't get a game like that because I haven't seen a game like that one or like play out like that one in the entire time that I've been watching StarCraft, right? Like that game was so unique in all the decisions that were made at this level and from this caliber of players. It's extremely rare that we see such decisions be made. So yeah, very, very cool. A treat of sorts. And this time around, it's going to be back to a little bit more traditional opening with the Adept Glaives.
So I said that the Overlord can see it, and that is correct. I do believe that's a fact. It's just not seeing it. Cats, it's not moving. It's a little bit. Which I mean, I feel like she knows in some other way, just maybe with the units that, well, yeah, there was a stalker that was
very
going.
Interesting.
And she is going to grow for him, but he's like, oh, it could have been 100% confirmation. It would have been nice.
Yeah, I think even if that Overlord moves within that cliff, it should be able to spot the Twilight Council. So I'm not sure why. Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult, right, to know like there should be a building there or not a building there. So can't really filter for that. There is going to be a poke, but there shouldn't be a commitment from these Adepts. Even if they don't see anything, the Shades should be cancelled because, you know, the upgrade's not done yet.
Double Stargate follow-up's not exactly uncommon nowadays. Astrea clearly he likes this follow-up. But yeah, what does the damage of the actual Adepts do? And is Scarlett going to now be even more on guard about the Stargate follow-up?
Yeah, I think Astrea was never looking to do damage with this Adepts then. This is an approach that we actually saw Neeb take against potential Queen Walks from Scarlett. And whoa, don't lose those Adepts! What was that shade? I mean, a lot of those Adepts are gonna get caught in the middle of the map. Now Scarlett firing up an extra 20 Zerglings as soon as this happens. Not because she needs them defensively, but I assume to deny or make sure that Astrea cannot take a third on the back of this. Additional Zerglings, now Ravagers being made as well. Scarlett soon to go on offense. I think that shade was just not warranted by any stretch of the imagination, but perhaps Astrea getting fooled, seeing the saturation on the forward base of Scarlett, whereas Scarlett has like no drones basically at her natural.
Yeah, I mean, that is definitely a tactic that can be used, but that was also her natural base, the third. Astrea did block the actual natural. Yeah. Yeah, that was a big mistake with the Adepts. Now, the good news about following with 2 Stargates is that you could also go into Void Rays, which would help tackle the Ravagers, but not necessarily the Lings. Phoenixes are bit of the worst of both worlds, and that is what Astrea has decided to stick on, even as he scouts the incoming engagement. Gonna try and hold up on 2 bases. Shield battery could be corrosive bioled or simply depowered. Hopefully one of these is a pylon, and one is. Looks like this is going to be just enough, actually, with the amount of adepts that Astrea has been able to build while Scarlett came across the map. It is going to be enough. The Phoenix do the job in picking up the Ravagers, and the adepts...
What?
Wow.
Wow.
Bam. That was a very... I mean, Astrea was even surprised right there, right? Like, that was supposed to be at least somewhat complicated, because at the very least, you're stuck on 2 bases turtling. But Scarlett just figured that she had committed so much to it and not droned that she also was not going to be able to recover from the attack. That was abrupt.
I mean, that's absolutely crazy. I'm not sure what that was. Zerglings without much of a backbone usually don't pierce through Protoss. I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time, at least, right? Like 3 Ravagers, I can see how Scarlett was thinking maybe this is enough of a backbone, but Astrea just with, I mean, any units from those targets would have done it, really, right? So yeah, I'm not sure. I think that if Scarlett just looked to deny the 3rd, that would have been a good move. If she didn't completely overcommit to the attack after picking off those adepts from Astrea, just decides to maybe drone up and deny a 3rd for a while. I thought that was a brilliant maneuver. The approach from Astrea was very interesting, but I think he was trying to account for queen walks in a way that Neeb was trying to against Scarlett on a game of Jagannatha. And I asked Neeb in the interview, like, what was the idea behind the adepts, because it seems counterproductive against Queen Roach, right? Because adepts are not good against roaches. But Scarlett does queen walks and roach attacks with a lot of links. She really likes links more than anyone else. So the idea from Neeb was you threaten, etc., and then you just kind of bring back the adepts and defend the links with that by sitting behind the stalkers, etc. So I think maybe that's what Astrea was aiming for. But yeah, shoot for the moon and you'll land somewhere among the stars, something. He just wins the game, right? So that works.
Something like that. I mean, I think the fact that it was so dedicated by Scarlett, right, already put that a little more into Astrea's pocket, because he was trying very hard to defend on 2 bases. But had she been a little less dedicated, had it been, you know, just the Lings, just the Ravagers, something along those lines, very non-committal, like, obviously the game goes on, but nope, dedicated, didn't perhaps expect the double Stargate follow-up, which, I mean, it's a thing, you know, but it is not always the thing that the Protoss are doing. A lot of them will try and grab a 3rd Nexus behind it, and it is an easy punish if the Adepts aren't working. But yeah, Scarlett got bopped at the end, I suppose. I feel like other Zergs would have tried to play that game out. Is worth throwing out there, but at the end, because she really did not do any economic damage, she didn't get into probe line at all. Yeah, she was down 6 workers, and the recovery was going to be too grueling of a process.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely agreed. It's a difficult situation. Scarlett does min-max a lot more than most Herc players, meaning she will go heavy on the aggression or she will go heavy on the macro, right? Like, she will just go crazy droning without making any units if she anticipates that you're not going to be aggressive. And sometimes if she thinks that you're being aggressive, she'll just overdo only units, or if she wants to be aggressive herself, she'll do only units. So feeling maybe that, like, she didn't have the economic backbone. I don't blame her too much for leaving that game. But yeah, the strategy itself, it was difficult to see it work, I think. Mostly Lings just struggle to punch through Protoss walls, usually, at least in my experience.
That is definitely true. I think that's most people's experience. The last game did start off a bit odder as well, which I guess I'll mention after the intro. Bottom left, down 2. She is Scarlett.
And in the bottom right-hand side of the map, it is Max Angel. Astrea. Looking great in his own right. Very cool strategies from him. Very unique. Both build orders were kind of offbeat. The first one being super offbeat, actually.
Yes. The first one is definitely the weirdest one. The second one was something that's been done before, but obviously still a bit more of a unique way of playing. This natural expansion at the gold, Astrea is just going crazy, man.
This guy!
The only thing I was going to mention about last game's starter, like opener, was that Scarlett did threaten with those Lings, right? Which we didn't necessarily go over too in detail, but Astrea handled fairly gracefully again. But, you know, lost the Adept and then lost those other Adepts later on. It just didn't seem like it was the absolute best for Astrea. But that turned around very quickly. Now, Scarlett What in the world do you think when the Overlord sees... Wait, is he gonna... Can you fit? No. Can't fit. No. No, never mind. Okay. I was like, what are you gonna think when you don't see a Nexus as a Zerg player? This is PvP. I mean, fair enough. Maybe they're just going one base Stargate, but this Overlord's gonna see no Nexus. You're like, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
2 gateways, but the timing of the gateway is a little bit odd. What I would have liked from Astrea, he has a probe on the other side. Maybe drop a pylon, because then you've really solved the cannon rush, right? Like, you probably have a proxied forge or some weird stuff, because there's unaccounted for resources here, no doubt. But it should be apparent to Scarlett that if it isn't a proxied gateway, and if it isn't a proxied forge, it has to be a Nexus.
Right.
If it is a Nexus proxy, the only reason to proxy it is the gold, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like Scarlett also went for a pool first, so... I mean, I kind of like the idea of the back that, you know, Astrea went for a 2-gateway... Yeah, he went for a 2-gateway build in the first game, but that was with a Nexus. You know, an actual, like, in-base natural Nexus. Second game, he also could have gone for 2 gateways, but figured he would be fine with 1 against the 6 Lings that attacked a Cybernetics core. And he was right about that. So maybe off the idea that Scarlett would think, oh, this guy's really over-defending again. This guy's crazy. Fair, but the Nexus is still missing. There are still resources missing.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just too difficult to tell, really. The timing and sounds like 400 minerals would be a lot to miss, right? But since he's playing so confusingly already, Scarlett might just kind of be taking this at face value. Okay, Overlord's going over to the gold.
Yeah, she has to smell it. I mean, I wish I could have caught wind of her reaction, but her camera won't let me do that. And yeah, the Overlord will spot the gold here, but is it too late? I mean, I want to say no, right? Like, it's so weird for a Protoss to take the gold. I mean, I guess Scarlett doesn't have the capabilities to really easily harass this like the other races really do, right? Like, you are not gonna walk queens there. Well, most people are not gonna walk queens there. Roaches are gonna take a while. You still need a roach run, and Zerglings just simply don't really have anything to do at this base at this point, especially with the shield battery.
I guess you could build 3 roaches just to build Ravagers, right?
Yeah.
So that would be very good at harassing the probe line. That is still, you know, like a little pit stop that I think Scarlett doesn't really want to be making, but since you're... the alternative is letting the probes get away with mining a gold. I feel like you would dedicate to a Roach Warren and a handful of roaches. But Scarlett, maybe she's going to take this as an opportunity to...
There's a Roach Warren.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm glad to see it, but I was like, maybe she's gonna actually just kind of go toe to toe on the macro. Which, if that's the case, take your own gold.
Yeah, that would have worked out well. And I really, every time we see this map, I'm like, oh, I wonder, this Zerg player is kind of unconventional. Will they take a gold? This Zerg player, will they take a gold? Never do Zerg players take a gold. And I think that they're best suited to take the gold. It's easier, I think, to defend. They have the most mobile units in the Zerglings early game. And yeah, we see the Protoss this time around instead taking the gold, which is fantastic.
Her Roach Warren's not done. She is building a handful of Lings and her Queens on the front line, but her Overlord did move away from the natural to see if maybe more Adepts are being built up, so a bit awkward. Do some scouting as Scarlett right now.
Yeah, 3 Adepts here at the 3rd base of Scarlett are potentially gonna do a lot. These Adepts could shade onto the ramp, and that's exactly what they're gonna do. So they clamp up to make sure that they don't get surrounded by the Lings. 5 Roaches in production from the Queen of Blades. She's gonna need all of those Roaches, as the Zerglings are not gonna trade too effectively against Adepts tucked in a pocket like this. And now the Adepts are gonna look to evacuate. Dark Shrine on the way for Astrea. You know what my favorite response would have been, Zombie Grab, to the gold base? I think as soon as you know it's happening, you start walking a Queen over there behind the mineral line, and you send a drone, cancel a hatchery, make a creep tumor, and spine rush from behind. I think that would have been actually the best. I actually think that would have been the quickest that you could have harassed it, and the most effectively that you could have harassed it.
I feel like we've seen that, actually. I think it was a ZVZ that we saw it in. This sounds very familiar. ZVZ beginning of this tournament, maybe even the qualifiers, I don't remember. But yeah, that is a really cool idea. It unfortunately is not the case. Now the Ravagers are coming in, but after Astrea has already benefited a lot from the base and is already on his way to additional technology, so Stalkers, Blink, and a Dark Templar could also help defend, although it would reveal the Dark Templar, it would reveal his hand. You might want to be holding off on that and just actually trying to sneak them in, because Astrea has set up a proxy pylon.
Yeah, Astrea actually has enough Adepts that he can tackle the Ravagers as well, and these are very expensive units. Each Ravager costs as much as a Mutalisk costs. So just getting rid of a few of these, one-shotting a lot of them, is going to be pretty decent for Astrea. As the reinforcements for Scarlett arrive, however, he's forced to evacuate, and a lot of these probes are unable to mine. So yeah, Astrea did get away with the early gold, but if Scarlett can retain this position, it will become very, very annoying for the American Protoss.
The Dark Templar coming into play, though. An Overseer is being brought to the front lines, but there's not much to defend Dark Templar back at home. Two of them could do a lot of damage as Scarlett, you know, effectively denies mining, but hasn't opened up the actual pathway to victory quite yet. I think now realizing she might just have enough to pull the trigger, actually go for the throat. That's exactly what she's going to do. But it looks like Astrea has already granted that as well. So units at the natural.
Astrea hits with both Dark Templar at the exact same time, by the way. So giving Scarlett the least bit of room to kind of maneuver around those. Big attack, however, for Scarlett. So details for later, as this is going to crash very strongly onto this gold base. Astrea does have Blink to work with, but this is too many circlings for those stalkers to really escape. It looks like, will they get the surround? Only towards the end, but that might be good enough. Blink available again will allow Astrea to get back to safety. But yeah, details from Astrea are just so phenomenal. He works in both Dark Templar at the same time. Good recall here as well to save a lot of the probes, actually. But ×1 in front, you know, just to do as much damage as possible by syncing them up.
Yeah, the DTs were really well done. So Astrea comes in with this a probe lead. Of course, not going to have all the Nexus to utilize that probe lead, but now has a decent number of Blink Stalkers with +1 that finished recently. So they're going to be a little bit better as we watch them run away once again from a Ling surround. Back into the natural they go. Cannon and Shield Battery to help out. Actually going to try and lock the Lings in, but not enough force field to do that. So the Nexus did fall, but Astrea, you know, he already got quite a bit of mining from the gold base and now has a very fresh, the freshest base is a very well protected one. So there's plenty of mining to be done on that natural for another 4, 5, 6 minutes where, you know, maybe he does retake the gold. Might actually just be like, okay, gold was done. Let me just get a regular third at this point.
Yeah, so he will break his own gateway for that. He will be able to take the third base now, finally. So maybe he can still stabilize. I do like what Scarlett was able to do there. I'm very decisive at that third base. That was her mission. Actually failed. We might have seen a 3-0. But she does succeed in taking out that base. So the game will progress with perhaps as a little bit of an advantage for Scarlett. I like her position a bit better. What about you, Jess?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the fact that she was able to get all 4 bases up on a 70 drones, gold base included, obviously puts her in a much better spot now. Had the DTs been doing more damage or bought more time and the Nexus actually lived for Astrea, I mean, he's probably lived with the economy underway and the building number of stalkers, right? But definitely got more interrupted. At least now trying to interrupt Scarlett now. But needs to be careful not to get surrounded, bite off more than he can actually chew. Gonna blink to the right side, but actually puts them in range of more corrosive vials, which a couple of them do hit, weaken up a lot of the stalkers. Astrea's game plan, I mean, he's gonna be able to survive on the 2 bases that he has, but he's definitely not gonna thrive. And even now trying to get the 3rd base, I mean, I could see that easily being in trouble. Scarlett knows that she has a good force.
Yeah, I mean, Astrea is doing what he can here to try and make something happen, but Scarlett with a now very hefty supply lead. This DT has somehow snuck into the corner of this base. So Scarlett is going to look to answer that with an Overseer. But yeah, those vials, by the way, were beautiful as well. Zoning vials saying, well, this is exactly where you want to go rather than where your units are. So Astrea has to kind of blink into it or just move through those vials and takes a lot of damage. Scarlett now with every right move, getting the links around as well. This Stalkers this time around unlikely to escape. And with this, I think we might see the first map going in favor of Scarlett. She wants to get rid of that battery right away, but I don't see enough Astrea here to really stop her.
I think the another tricky game plan from Astrea is awesome to see, right? But this one, I think, was the most dangerous of them all. Just being disassociated from the rest of your reinforcements, from the rest of your bases, it just always makes it so much trickier to deal with. There's a reason the gold is not the most commonly taken map. Base on that map, but yeah, kudos to Scarlett for adapting to another weird game and staying in the series. That's her first point on the board, but she still is on her last life. Astrea leads the series in the upper bracket. When we return from the break, we'll see if he can actually close it out or Scarlett makes the comeback. We're moving on to Beckett for game number 4. Scarlett stops the 3-0 from occurring after yet another curveball of a build from Astrea. And now that we're on this map, well, we can only imagine what Astrea's plans are, because that's more so what we're looking at. It's usually the Protos's veto and then the Zerg veto's Romanicide. That is what Scarlett did, but Astrea didn't want to play on Jagannatha. It was fine playing on Beckett.
Yeah, and yeah, we thought this series was already strange. Beckett should be amazing because both of these players, but especially Astrea, seems to have the initiative to just play whatever. But Scarlett has never shied away from whatever. She's like, oh, you want a whatever? Let's whatever, bro. So let's see what her answer is going to be to whatever madness Max Angel starts with. Unless, I mean, I think Scarlett also has done something like 12 pool, all drone pool on this map, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So yeah, shenanigans for her on this map also could be abound to start things off. So yeah. I am very curious to see what's going to happen here, CG. I am very excited. And like I was saying during the break, I only wish we were fresh, or I was fresh at least for the series. I want to slap my face a little bit because it's been a long day, but it's been an amazing series. And yeah, I hate to do it.
I'm glad that it's lived up to the idea of a Scarlett versus Astrea PvC, right? Yeah. Like, there was still a chance that Astrea played the straight and narrow Stargate builds and typical adept into macro builds, but now Astrea has absolutely been mixing it up, really liking Stargate plural builds, but only after doing something else that's kind of wacky. You're right, Scarlett does also change things up a lot. I think by now the drone pool with the Lings is a little too obvious, and people have figured out how to deal with it, so I don't think she will do it. But Beckett is supposed to be lethal for either player who arrive on it, you know? And I'm just more curious about what Astrea's plans are. But first, we spawn on the bottom left over this player. It is for Shopify Rebellion, Scarlett.
Not pulling whatsoever. So more likely to put on the first bits of aggression on the top right-hand side of the map. It is the blue Protoss player for Alpha X, Astrea. Shout out to Alpha X while we're on the North American portion, a team that has been around now for a long while and has been putting a lot of events as well as supporting a lot of players for a very long time. So very cool people. We don't really see them on the European portion that much.
Alpha X? Yeah, since Psystorm, I guess, merged with, I forget what the clan was called. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we see a lot more Psystorm in Europe, but... yeah. Alpha pretty much still in the North America. So Scarlett goes for not just a pool first, which she's done before, not 12 pool, but just pool first for hatchery. She actually went for a gas first this time, and I don't think she did that previously. Obviously, she knows it's going to be scouted, but it does. I think it forces Astrea to react. So Astrea not going to go for a 2-gate wall off because the amount of Lings coming, right now. This quickly, I'd say it's still scary, but just like the Lightshade game, it looks like Astrea has confidence that he'll be able to handle if it is 6 Lings, the 6 Lings. It's only 2.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm in love with that pylon block from Astrea though, because these Lings don't really need to choose between killing the pylon and crossing the map. They're going to be happy to, I was going to say happy to settle for the pylon, but apparently they're happy to cross the map, so who knows? I mean, the next set of Lings surely will deal with that pylon. Maybe Scarlett just has no plans for that expansion just yet. So more concerned with going across and seeing what her Overlord already sees. Not sure what the utility is going to be, but yeah, I guess if they can crush through the probe.
What is this faster speed really going to be for? I mean, I think the one benefit is if Astrea is going to try and go for a supremely greedy third base again, so... The 2 gateways we saw in the first game, it was like a 330 Nexus or something. But literally the fastest Nexus you can get for a third. I guess it would also help stop a 4-minute Nexus to a degree, but so would regular speed timing, right? So, yeah, what is the faster speed for? We're thinking defensive? Maybe? Because offensively, she knows Astrea is going to scout that is a faster gas. So... I don't know. It
might just be a mind game. It might just be an issue of in their last series, she link flooded and all in, and it failed in the final game. She reportedly didn't care much about who won. So, but maybe she's still using that information. Maybe showing speed and being like, hey, I can link speed. So already a shield battery being forced from Astrea, right? Like a sentry. Maybe if he stays super defensive, while she drones up. But you're right. I mean, in practice, the link speed is not really going to accomplish anything for a while.
I mean, yeah, usually I don't think Astrea is reacting or putting down these buildings in this order because of the link speed, right? Like, it's possible, but I don't think so. I think Astrea was already planning on another kind of odd build where he grabs later technology. So we are still talking 2 base for this robo, but it was after 2 additional gateways and not, again, a responsive 2 additional gateways, I don't think. So it's still a very odd situation, one that I don't think Scarlett is actually getting any benefit from. But then on the other hand, I don't necessarily know if I like Astrea's build because we just don't see this kind of unfold this way, right? So I don't know what to expect from Astrea. Scarlett, even with the faster gas, we kind of have seen this before at the very least. We kind of know what to expect from her.
Immortal All-In, I think, is what we might be looking at. I mean,
it's really not that good in Legacy of the Void.
Yeah. At the same time, if there is going to be a map to cross the map, or to cross quickly, it's going to be this one. So, you know, Sentry Immortal. My God, why? This is, I mean, this is super cool, right? Because if he shows the Warp Prism, he will show the Warp Prism, and Scarlett doesn't have full information on the number of gateways, etc. Though she is now getting gas counts out of Astrea. She could overreact, and she has made an additional 10 circlings actually, so this actually does work. And this is kind of the perfect setup for a 1-2 punch if Astrea wants to go back for the Immortals. There's the Immortal, the first Immortal. He already has the sentries. It's starting to be the only thing that makes sense to me.
Oh, he goes for robotic space. Scarlett.
Oh, wow.
Okay, 2 things. I think one, she saw the gases. She was either worried about a Stargate follow-up. Or Dark Shrine follow-up, like either way, like she grabs Spore Crawlers, right? And then only after the Overlord has actually moved too far away does Astrea slap down the robotic spay, which clearly Spore Crawlers help not at all against. Well, maybe if it's like a robo, a disruptor drop, maybe the Spore Crawlers could help, but realistically not so much. It's just such a funny game. Astrea's playing so long on 2 bases. You'd think this was Heart of the Swarm.
This is so funky. Yeah, you would think this is Heart of the Swarm, where it would make sense to stay on 2 bases for a little bit longer, but Astrea's gonna mine out of those 2 bases much quicker than you ever would in Heart of the Swarm. And he is getting like 3 tech buildings while taking a 3rd while moving out. I mean, this is a little bit confusing, but I guess if he can force enough units out of Scarlett, maybe she is as confused as I am.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's almost like Drunken Master style, which is just like, I hope that I've just pushed you a little bit too off kilter, that you're not really prepared for what I really am going to do, which is apparently Charge Lot Disruptor.
Yeah, not the most common combination either, but it is what it is. A lot of these links will get the surround on the gateway. Oh, huge war fields here from Astrea, trapping a lot of links. Very quick to it. Good decision as well. And I mean, put that energy to use from those sentries. Scarlett's gonna have to remake those 14 links back at home. So that's, I mean, that's like not developing an economy. At the same time, the Ravagers will find the Warp Prism as Scarlett looks to try to deny a 3rd base of an Astrea that has, I mean, more tech than Elon Musk at this point. He's just doing everything.
It's a lot of technology in a very late 3rd, because this one looks like it's going to be canceled. 1 Disruptor is not going to be able to save the day. That's a decent number of Zealots, but they don't have charge yet. The Nexus even creates a bigger concave area, so Force Fields have to be slapped down, but Corrosive Biles again blanketing whatever army that Astrea does have. 2nd Disruptor is going to come out and go for gold. No, going to decide to back away, which I think is the proper call. The rest of Astrea's army got surrounded and killed. If he was able to evacuate the army, I'd still be scratching my head at this game, but not evacuating with the army, not saving the 3rd base. This is Scarlett's game, right? Yeah,
it's a Drunken Master game indeed. I don't know. Are we doing interviews? I have way too many questions here already. I mean, Wardy, if you're listening, limit me to 1 question and slap me if I ask more, because I don't know how to even pick. I don't even know where to begin. What is this series so far? I am not sure I understand anything anymore about this game.
Exactly. Yeah, I know what you mean, though. I feel like if you get 1 question, if you get 2 questions, it's going to be question vomit. It's just going to be nonstop questions.
Yeah.
Again, like if Astrea had been able to save those units, the Sentries and the Immortal and the 2nd Disruptor, I actually feel like there's a lot of possibilities in the game. with losing all of it, I still strongly feel like Scarlett's in the lead. So Scarlett doesn't have a humongous supply lead, especially for PPZ, but that's because she's dedicated a lot of resources to other things and is still banking a lot of resources. So upgrades, surgical hooks, banelings, Spire, another base. She's already at 77 drones. I mean, she has everything. She has the foundation. So yeah, we should see the explosion of supply. So it's 200 supply versus maybe 120. Disruptor shots are going to have to be huge if they are to overcome that.
Yeah, there's 10 Muta on the way in a second, 6 for now, and that's 7, now 10. So Scarlett is going to move across the map with those and try to apply some pressure. I don't know what Astrea can do. Also, her ground army looks formidable. I mean, there's so many of these Ravagers, it's going to be impossible for Astrea to really capitalize. Oftentimes, when you see Muta starting, you're hoping for the Protoss player, if you're rooting for them, hey, move out before those Muta show up on your side of the map, because when they show up on your side of the map, you're going to start, taking more damage, getting further behind in economy, and it's just going to get nasty. But in this particular case, Astrea doesn't really have that option. He is half now the supply of Scarlett. As like you were saying, Zombie Grab, she situated everything that she needed to. That observer gets piled to death. And now the Mutas are about to arrive. This I won't be mad if Astrea just calls GG when he sees the Muta.
Yes, so it's the Muta coming in to hit the natural, and it's the army coming in to hit the entire army. Scarlett is setting up as big of a surround as she can on this map. Actually, the banelings going on the left are going to get hit by the Disruptor, and the probes, unfortunately, while the third base might have been saved, the natural was absolutely ransacked, and here comes the rest of Scarlett's army. Now, Disruptor number 1 gets a pretty good shot, and I need about 4 more of those. The second one isn't quite there, and the Mutas continue to ransack the main, so wasn't even about the main fight whatsoever. You were right. Also would not have been surprised if he had just tapped out right then and there as soon as the first Muta showed up.
Yeah, because it was hopeless from there. And Scarlett even overexposing in a certain way. She doesn't really need to do anything with her ground army, but has enough ground army to even just win on the ground without the help from those Muta. So yeah, Scarlett super far ahead after Astrea did whatever that was. I mean, the Surging Trap was awesome. That's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got. That was, you'd have to ask him about what is the most ideal situation there. I can certainly imagine that, again, if he takes out the Lings, has the army, and is able to kind of apply pressure as opposed to being on the defensive, I could see her being confused and overcommitting to a defense, but I can never see her overcommitting so much that she's actually behind, At most, she's not extremely ahead, you know what I mean? But I'm sure there's
have solved it. You might have solved it. I think maybe Astrea with the Warp Prism, because we can see that with the Warp Prism hallucination, he wanted to force units out of Scarlett for sure. He does accomplish that. Maybe he's hoping you're going to overcommit to so many units that you have to all in into me. So without knowing how many units Scarlett did or didn't make, he just starts stacking in all directions because he thinks, I'm not going to take a third. You're coming for me. You're coming. And then she doesn't come. Then he takes a third. Then she comes. It's too late by then. Something like that. I don't know. I still don't know why all the tech paths, regardless. But yeah, mysteries unsolved for a different time, as this is going to be the final map. I have no idea what to expect, but a great game to end on the series. And in the bottom left-hand side for Alpha X is Astrea.
In the top right for Shopify Rebellion, she is Scarlett. So many things to talk about. One thing that is worth talking about is that Astrea, I don't think he has to be playing this way, right? Like, it's really cool the first 2 games went his way, and even then the first game was like, could have gone the other way for sure. We've seen Astrea go toe-to-toe in more macro games against many Zerg, against many players across the world. He's not coming in here as the severe underdog like an Astuna versus Neeb, right? Like, if Astuna does a lot of weird things, 1, he's admitted to liking weird things, but 2, he's the underdog. He's got to be a little bit tricky. I don't think Astrea has to be. And he's being an ultimate trickster. He is really throwing up the rule book. And eventually that's going to bite him in the butt. It has already bitten him in the butt. I feel like it's also an Astrea of old. because I do believe strongly this is what Astrea's problem was 4 or 5 years ago. He didn't have the mechanical foundations that he got when he went to Korea. I think that's about when it was started to really change. But he also was way too weird. He really tried to push the envelope like too far. It's like he reverted back to it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely fall into overthinking when you're trying to be creative, and you know there's sometimes cycles where you're just trying to, especially against an opponent like Scarlett, because you know that Scarlett is a thinking player. You know that Scarlett will be reacting in game and not just following whatever formula she has devised for herself. So that's when you can really get in your own head, right? It's like, oh, I gotta counter what she's gonna think, and then like try to get 3, you know, a 5 head, and then it ends up being a 1 head instead, because it's just overthinking it sometimes, right? So. I mean, yeah, it's a rough one, because you're completely right. I mean, I want to see Astrea in the season finals, because as clowny as the series looks, put him up against Rogue, put him up against Dark, he'll give him a fight, I assure you. Put him up against Raynors, or I don't care. Like, Astrea is an amazing player in the world stage, and he's obviously one of the best in North America, but series against Scarlett can definitely tend to get funky for whatever reason. And I mean, I kind of love it, right? Like, it's that classic NA chaos.
It is that classic NA chaos for sure. It looks like Astrea has finally acknowledged that his very odd openers aren't going to work out. Last game was also a bit odd, I suppose, because Scarlett opened up differently too, and that might have caused a different reaction from Astrea, but he still decided to really go for a very strong reaction where most of the Protosses would have had a mild one. Adept is not going to be killed.
Nice.
Very close. This time around, Astrea is going for Resonating Glaives after taking down the Overlord.
Yeah, that Adept must have been praying, because like he arrives with the Shade, he shoots an Extractor, like misses another shot, but ends up getting his value, and with his life, but not for long. It looks like the Lynx will catch up to him or her. Actually, Adepts are, I think, women, right, for the most part?
Oh, they're feminine. I don't think that the Protoss ever really use...
Oh, I see, they're feminine.
I have no idea, actually. I don't know what the...
Selendis is, yeah, not a, I guess.
Well, we still don't know how they like procreate, right? Or just like guessing.
I suppose you're right. Yeah, it's not in the lore, huh?
Apparently they are like photosynthesized for like feeding, but that's all I know.
Very interesting. All right.
Anyway.
Well, yeah. Anyway, we have Adepts again, and they are getting their upgrade soon to finish. Astrea will be hitting sharply here with a few Adepts. 18 Lynx already in production on the side of Scarlett. We'll see if she already has a Roadrunner as well, so she's well set up for this classic Adept attack.
Yeah, it's classic Adepts. It is classic. So 4 gateways eventually will finish up here, just shy of having that 4th done. So the bigger question is Astrea actually going to a 3rd Nexus, which is the most anticipated follow-up, or into the double Stargate without the gases, without the probe in the 3rd? It will be a Nexus. So if Scarlett wanted to overwhelm the Adepts and initiate a counterattack, this would be a more ideal scenario to do it on. I'm not certain she's going to go for that just because it failed the last time she tried. But that is I think for me, it's officially good news that Astrea is playing a lot more standard.
Yeah, for sure. Even though this Adept attack is not really going to find the damage that he was probably hoping for. As Scarlett with a little bit of the DRG response, only she didn't really overcommit to Roaches either, and we've seen a little bit of a trend on this front from her. She seems to favor Lynx more than most CERT players tend to favor Lynx in the early stages of this matchup. So only a handful of Roaches, but that will be good enough for her. On the side of Astrea, at least, the drone count for Scarlett has been kind of hampered by the fact that she has been making so many units. Additional 2 workers will go down, so Astrea actually with a hefty lead on that front. If he can defend, we'll have a game.
I think Astrea's Shade barely saw the glimpse of the Ling run by, because this was a very perfectly timed pull back to the 3rd base. Every Adept still together, being controlled, means that the additional Lings for the run by really weren't worth it, and then she already had made so many just to defend the Adept push. But yeah, she was falling behind in the drones. Now starting to get back into it, building up the drones, getting the lair, not going to go for any all-in. It means that Astrea is going to get some wiggle room. As his War Prism comes across the map, it's going to do some scouting as well as harassing and know that, okay, Scarlett's not going to try and bot me here. And even if she did, I think Astrea would have been able to defend with appropriate notice. He's already on his way to Disruptors. First Disruptor has been begun. 2 Immortals are already out. Shield batteries people around the 3rd base. I don't know. Even though Astrea didn't do a whole lot of damage with the Adepts, like direct damage, drones killed, I do think as far as suppressing Scarlett, that has worked quite well. And we'll see if this push can do any more of that.
Yeah, and a lot of the time we're talking about that as kind of like the underlying victory that Astrea got, but he lost his army. This time around, he kept all of his army alive, at least. So so not even losing that is good news for him. 2 immortal push here. So Astrea doing more Astrea things as he's gonna be clearing some creep, and potentially if he finds this base, which he will, he can siege it. I don't know that he can stay too long with a lot of links on the ground. Oh, cute.
All right. Immortal.
I like it. Beautiful.
Pretty good at taking down buildings. Gonna lose some health on them, but ultimately going to get that cancel and get away. No problem. Scarlett still continues to struggle to get the best foundation economic-wise, as she does head into Ling, Baneling, Roach Ravager. Gonna get very expensive very quickly. Another cancel on the 4th base. Astrea doing great things with this harassment.
Another one. Yeah, very, very good job with these 2 immortals here, as there are already disruptors situated back at his natural base. So Astrea doing a lot of right things here. Scarlett, no Spire on the way, which would be what would give me the greatest amount of fear if I am in Astrea's shoes right now. Is there a Spire on the way, right? Like, because he doesn't really have a great answer, and he hasn't had a great answer all series. It feels like almost to the Muta. But Scarlett not really going for that for the time being. So Astrea in a good position.
I would say that's one of the very scary things, scary possibilities. Astrea doesn't seem to be afraid of it, or hasn't acknowledged that it's a possibility, because no double hallucination Phoenix coming out from the 2 centuries. So for him, fortunate that he's correct. No Spire to worry about, just focus on doing the attack. 1 Colossus coming in to basically help control the area, but it is only the 1 Colossus. Not going to be that great at tearing down Banelings or Roach Ravager. Going to be very careful about walking into the concave, but using Oxide's Choke to pull back into, yeah, that's definitely something a Protoss can do.
Yeah, the 1 Colossus thermal lands timing as well. Not a 2nd Colossus on the way. Now a 2nd Colossus on the way. I like that a little bit better, right? Like if you're going to get the upgrade, at least a couple I think is nice. A big surround here from Scarlett as soon as Astrea tries to take that base. The Disruptors in a little bit of peril here, as Astrea will be pushed back, but he's not going to mind too much because Scarlett is now maxed out nearly on a not very effective or efficient army. Banelings are going to be the way that she scales, as she still has some links that she could end up morphing into those. Oh, no!
Yeah, Astrea acknowledging that mistake as well. That is 2 Disruptors that are gone from the army. A 3rd Colossus is close to popping, but those Disruptors were going to be excellent for 2 reasons: buying time and space and potentially getting the actual shots, right? And the Warp Prism for a little bit of scouting if the Observer isn't able to track everything. Now it's going to be really difficult for Astrea to hold, but here is the hold attempt. Force field to the right side. They're pretty good so far. But as Scarlett's trying to actually get into that natural base, so far nothing there to defend. A Colossus pops in the good time, and now Scarlett actually gets surrounded. She's not careful. No, she's actually going to go for another surround. There's not enough force fields quite there on the right side, especially as Corrosive Biles tear them down. Colossus left on the front lines as the Blink Stalkers blink backwards, but the shield battery couldn't save the day. No, it gets taken out. 2 Colossus still alive, however. One of them should fall soon if target fired. There it is. But the amount of Stalkers left over might just be able to cut it. Scarlett still has a supply lead at the end of the day, though, and still denied Astrea's 4th base. The Corrosive Biles not dodged, however. I mean, this is just...
I mean...
It was a hold, but Astrea lost a lot in the process.
A lot. I mean, Astrea with good focus fire onto the Banelings, I guess if that's what you really want to go for, if you're confident in holding the Roaches, the Banelings were going for the mineral lines. And ends up holding. I mean, that was kind of crazy. I'm not sure. I wasn't sure who was going to take it, but with 2 Disruptors there, Astrea would be in a fantastic position, right? So crucial that snipe at the start of the fight. And Scarlett, mind you, also could have walked into the natural base. There wasn't any unit there. You said it, right? Like, there's nothing there. But Scarlett kind of focused on the wall a little bit. I feel like even if you trickle down some circlings, you can create more chaos, force more defensive weapons away from the rest of the army of Astrea, etc., etc. So, again, both players playing a little bit sloppier than we're used to from them. But let's see who it will end up favoring, as this has been complete madness and utter chaos. Astrea now moving in the middle of the map. Fantastic force fields here, missing one at the start, but then readjusting. And this is actually good trades for him, as most of the army of Scarlett is not even, it's just bumping its head against the force fields until they expire. At the same time, Scarlett was maybe preoccupied with some Baneling Rambite. They flank up a Disruptor. No! The last shot there from a couple of those Roaches will catch it. And Zombie Grab, take it away. I don't know what's happening no more.
There's so much happening, actually. Scarlett desperately wants to take this fight, but Astrea is just barely holding on to some very important units. I mean, important units include the number of Stalkers that he has left, but it's finally starting to tear down. The Colossus is barely going to be saved. Maybe no, there's no shield battery to walk back to. The Stalkers are going to try and blink backwards as well. They do have +2 now, so they have been very effective in these trades. And if Astrea can continue retaining the blink Stalkers, that is actually one of the best tools that he has. But man, it would be a lot easier if he actually had some of the Robo units. The Colossus being torn down, the Disruptors being focus fired, that is a big issue for the Protoss, but he now has 4 bases. Scarlett's been on a relatively low drone count as far as Zerg goes for remaxing on this style. This game is absolutely not over, and Stalkers are something that Astrea can use to great effectiveness, right? They can harass, they can scout, they can defend, they can tear down Ravagers. Like, the Stalker count is actually so important, but did he save enough to actually continue on with this game?
Yeah, that's something that we'll have to find out the hard way as Astrea and Scarlett both posturing out on the map. Scarlett has to be a little bit more concerned if she doesn't have enough Zerglings. Good actually preemptive Stalkers here to prevent any little Rambais. That's about the only size of Rambai that Astrea could have prevented. So really good presence of mind there to account for stuff like that. And it's getting to be that kind of scrappy game where players are going to be look for edges in kind of odd situations, in odd places. So, yeah, it's getting weirder and weirder as now we have Stalker Disruptor. This is not a PvP Zombie Grab, but it's going to be the unit composition of choice for Astrea. And given that we have been playing a 13-minute early to mid game, I can't blame it.
It's been very back and forth, but this is the best scrappy composition that Astrea can afford. I mean, sentries would also be lovely to have, but a lot more difficult to utilize effectively over time, basically, right? They force field, they probably get destroyed by the Banelings. That's kind of it for them. You can't really afford to try and wait it to get to High Templars for Archons, so it's basically what you got, and hopefully it's going to work out. It's going to be very vulnerable to surrounds, though, and that is still something that Astrea has to be very concerned about, because while Scarlett hasn't been on 80 drones, she has been on enough workers to get another maxed out army.
Yeah. Oh no, the blink is not good enough!
Oh,
the worst universe is when you clump your probes for the Banelings to hit them all at once.
Yeah, that actually could be it.
Total.
It was already pretty bad to lose the 4th base workers without much to say about that, right? But to lose 2 bases worth of workers in a very, very, very close game. That might just be the nail in the coffin, unless Astrea can take some amazing engagements, and one Disruptor does get a pretty good hit, but here comes the Concave. At the very least, it looks like the Nexus might falter here. Can Astrea actually make the hold? Zealot's coming forward as well to try and help, but the Banelings are coming in. There's nothing to stop them. The Disruptor shot did hit some, but the damage has already been done. Roaches and Ravagers and Banelings just piling in here as Astrea desperately scrambles for defense, but I think it's it. I think the reverse kill has happened. No Disruptor shots are going to save Astrea as he loses the 4th Nexus, lost already his probes, and is losing all of the Stalkers as well. Scarlett has done it.
It's done. It's done. The series is done. Astrea will have to tap out here, Jess. What a series this has been. A little bit sloppy on both ends, and I hope that we get to hear from Scarlett to pick her brain about it. But yeah, this time around, she will be moving on.